Welcome to the Halloween version of Top Lenders in America. I am excited because today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, the forced function, and one of my other favorite topics, co-creating. And we are doing that right now. And so welcome to my co-host, Zach Hammer of Real Estate Growth Hackers.
Hello.
And let's jump into Top Lenders in America and how force functions work. I think we've talked about that before. When you hear force function, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, for me, it's about taking willpower out of the equation as much as possible, acknowledging that sometimes the things that I want to do in the moment and the things that I know I really want to be doing are not always the same thing. And when I have to rely on my own willpower to do the things that I know I want to do, I don't make the best decisions. And it's actually easier to make decisions on the front end of setting up appointments, commitments in my calendar, things that I know at this time I do this thing, and doing that it helps to actually get the activities done that I want to do. And for me, I found that it's actually really important. I know this kind of fits into what we're talking about here. I found that it's really important to do it with another person. That it actually doesn't work really well for me personally to say, I'm just going to throw something in my calendar and get it done. Unfortunately, it's really easy for me to ignore things in my calendar if they aren't tied to a meeting with another person. So force functions to me are setting up meetings with other people in order to do the work or the activities that I find important, either for me, for my business, or even for my personal life. I actually have force functions just personally as well. But yeah.
And you've recently hired someone in your business to basically act as a force function, right?
Exactly. So I have an assistant I recently hired, and her whole purpose, and not really, obviously she's a human and has a much bigger purpose than helping me in my business. But her whole purpose in the role in my company is to make sure that we meet together daily, to talk about what I'm going to be working on for the day. It helps me to clarify, make sure that I'm working on the important things. It forces me to take the time to think through what am I actually going to do today. And then separately, she's continually working with me and reminding me of the things that I need to be doing. If I've got a task on my plate, on my calendar, she reminds me that I need to be doing it and helps make sure that it happens. So yeah, her biggest role in my company is just to make sure that I have another person that I can and do meet with to do the things that I know that I want to do anyway.
Help wanted, looking for a forced function.
Indeed.
You know,
exactly.
In a lot of ways, that is what a coach is. A lot of coaching, especially in state, it ends up being accountability. Whether it's Keller Williams MAPS coaching or all the coaching, a lot of it's you're going to show up at this and I'm going to ask you, did you get done what you said you were? And then you go on is part of, that's a really good example. And when I think of force function, I really like thinking of the gutter guards on a bowling alley. They just keep me from going off track, kind of keep me in the lane. And because, one of my favorite books is Willpower Doesn't Work by Benjamin Hardy. And the whole premise is every day you've got a little bit of willpower. And when that runs out, your environment decides what you end up doing. And if you just rely on willpower, when you're out of it, you're going to fall into your environment. So his suggestion is use your willpower to create an environment where you fall forward into what you want. And it's the gutter guards, or how do you use your willpower to put in forced functions? And like one of the greatest examples I know of is there's a small software company called Salesforce. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. And
I have heard of them.
Their whole annual calendar is built around their forced function called Dreamforce. So they've got, I think that's what it's called. It's an event every year that they had all the developers, and it's where they announce what's coming out. Their whole business cycle is built on around that as a force function. So all their new features have to be done by a certain time, because then the marketing department has to be able to do something by a certain time, because then you've got the events. And so as a software company, like they announce that a year in advance, and that makes sure Because in software, one of the issues is scope creep. Like
Right.
you never launch your features because you can add in that feature and that feature, and it never gets
Right.
launched. They don't have that issue because they have this forced function of an event. A lot of times, in real estate with my practice, having an item on my calendar is a lot like trying to ship a feature in software. There's so many things that can just run over it. I've got an appraisal I need to respond to. I've got a client that called me 5 minutes before. And so having a real force function that I care about is the only way that I can keep my calendar appointments most of the time.
Right.
Like once out of 10, maybe even 3 out of 10 times, I can keep my calendar appointment, but 10 out of 10 times it's not going to happen. And it's even more true in like our business, because most people that get into real estate, it's for freedom. And I've got a calendar item and it's just for me. And I like people. It's easier for me stuff with other people than it is for myself. And that's what we do here. Our shows, I guest host your show, you guest host mine, because it's just more enjoyable to do with other people. I enjoy this. But then two, I'm not going to let you down even more so than myself. It's that extra accountability.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really part of what makes it work, is that foundationally, like I know I am not going to just say, yeah, I don't feel like doing this today, for two reasons. One, I really don't want to show up for you as the kind of person who just says, I don't feel like doing this today. That's not who I want to be when I show up and represent myself to you as a person. But similarly, because this for us is a two-way street, right? Where you come on my show and I need to do my show. I come on your show and you need to do yours. I know that if I don't show up today, I might stop you from doing what you need to. And yeah, I will go way out of my way to help you drastically more than I go out of the way to help myself. And that definitely makes a big difference when you do that. I don't know how often that's the case for everybody, but I do feel like that is more common. We more readily will work hard on behalf of somebody else than we do for ourselves. And instead of just bemoaning that and trying to make it different, you and I have figured out how to leverage it to actually be the way that we can make sure that we still get what we want in the process. And that's part of what's powerful about this.
And it's enjoyable. And like my wife, when she competed in a fitness competition, and she had a coach that she a lot of money to, and part of the reason she paid so much was she had to have a really strong reason to not show up. And so she got up really early. She had to drive not to the normal gym, but across town, and like everything that she did helped her place in the one fitness competition that she did. I think about Michael Jordan. He did really great when he had Phil Jackson. Like there's something to be said, that thing that helps you do what you want to do.
Right.
Even when you don't want to. Like Nick Saban says, you've got the pain of sacrifice or the pain of disappointment, basically. And have that forced function makes the pain of sacrifice me more likely to follow through with it no matter what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's interesting is like the lived experience of when you're in the midst of this, it doesn't feel like it's just helping me to get over the hurdle, right? More often than not, it doesn't feel like that. Most often, it actually just feels like I am naturally going to do this because this thing's in place. It actually feels easy and fairly effortless most of the time. It's actually a lot more rare that I feel like I have to tap into I'm going to do this because I'm going to overcome my lack of motivation. More often than not, setting it up in this sort of environment makes that just go away. Or like, I don't even need to tap into that. It's like, oh yeah, I got my meeting now. It's time to do it. Right. Yeah. Like it just feels easy and effortless. So it takes something that without the forced function, like more often than not requires me to get over that feeling of not wanting to do it. Right. And to get over that obstacle in order to do the thing that I know I need to do anyway. That's the norm. But with the forced function, most of the time it doesn't feel like that at all. But when it does feel that way, it's still easier because I have the other motivation of helping you, of how I'm showing up where other people can see, right? Like that
Right.
sort of idea. So you get this really cool benefit of it. Most of the time, it just makes it feel easier regardless. But in those times where it doesn't feel effortless, it still is easier to get the result that I want.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, especially for real estate agents, like I actually think of the real estate transaction itself as a forced function. Like I've got a client that calls me and I set up an appointment, like that appointment is a forced function. No matter what's going on,
Right.
like this is what I'm doing. And then when we write a contract, we've got a closing date and we've got certain dates for inspection. And like all of those things are forced function that a successful real estate agent just naturally knows, like whatever happens, I've got to make these things happen. If I don't get the
Right.
inspection done, either we lose the deal or I'll lose my commission because I didn't take care of my client business. And so real estate agents and probably lenders in particular, like our business is set up with when it hits, we've got specific timelines we have to hit. And it makes it easier with new agents, especially like how do they get that first client? But once they get the client, then it can fall into place long as they've got some specific, once you get under contract, it falls into place basically. And it's kind of like when me and you, when we get together, like the show just falls into place. This is fun.
Right.
This is simple. It doesn't feel hard at all. And like we've
Right.
created an effective environment where the penalties are bad enough that I'm not going to do them. And the benefits are good enough that I'm really glad that I've done them.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and the other thing that I love about these style of forcing functions too is people often miss this, but like that element that you described of how Salesforce leverages, like everything hinges on that date that everything has to be shipped, and like everything backtraces to that. That element is actually part of what really clarifies what is important, what isn't important, right? Where it's like we're you and I may not be perfect at this by any means, and me especially, but like we've designed our time together for how we do these shows that we know that by the end of our time together, we're going to have created the show, which means like whatever the process is, if we come armed fully with the topic or not, it does dictate we can't spend forever creating the show, right? Like we aren't going to spend an unlimited amount of time, which means you get used to this idea of okay, I've got to pick a topic quick if I don't already have one. I've got to flesh it out quick if I don't already have one. And like we're not perfect at that, but we're getting better every time that we do, figuring out that zone. And you and I have established this as knowing we have that freedom to do that. Anyway, but it makes it clear where in the past one of my obstacles in creating content like this was often I would just spend way too long creating like the assets to actually create the content, right? I'd work on an outline for so long that I was out of energy by the time I actually needed to create the content. But if you actually can restrain yourself to a specific time frame, a specific limitation, it gets you better at having to make those decisions of what is important, what isn't important, and trying to get to the output, which really is where you develop that skill set over time, I think. And so, yeah, having those forcing functions, whether it's a date that you have to complete something by or a limited time window to accomplish something, that restraint actually helps to create the creativity that gets you better results as well. It makes things more clear, makes what's necessary more obvious and easier to see clearly, where when you don't have those constraints, it could be harder because you have an infinite landscape of possibilities and it's really hard to discern what is most important right now. But limitations actually help you to get clarity, I think.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed, I want to limit my options. And whenever I'm feeling trapped, expand my options. And so, this.
And where does that quote come from?
So it's my coach, Joe. Where did he get it from?
I was just going to say, because I know who I most recently heard that from was Alex Hormozi.
You beat me to it. That's amazing. Uh,
Indeed.
Thank you, Alex, for your wisdom.
Indeed.
If you haven't listened to the show, it seems like it's a requirement that we have to mention him every week. It just so happens.
Indeed.
And like that, that's what the forcing function allows. If I feel stuck, me and you brainstorm. If I'm overwhelmed, like you can help me whittle it down. There's some power of kind of co-creating, and like the brainstorm of that. And I think part of it too is I've tried to create forcing functions before where it's just myself. All right, I am going to give $100 to Auburn football, which would be the worst thing in the world for me as an Alabama fan if I don't do X. But there's an
Right.
issue with it. There's no real accountability. And there's potentially software, but I'm not going to consistently jump through enough hoops to accidentally give Auburn football money. And so that one, this is really important to me, and I'm not going to let you down. Part of it too is part of this forcing function is it gets me to do what I actually enjoy doing. Like it's
Right.
easier to do it when we're like this.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and that kind of does lead to the co-creation thing too. I love 1+1=11. And there's been a number of times when we've done this, we ask you to go first because I'm not sure what to talk about. But as we record your show, like stuff shows up for me. And I know vice versa, it's happened. You're like, all right, Charlie, you go first and we'll see. And it's been amazing to see how you've got ways of running the show that I've taken, and like I've co-created this in a lot of ways where the sum is more than the parts.
Right.
Thank
Yeah,
God, right?
absolutely. Indeed. For some reason, the example that's coming to my mind is 1+1=10, because that would be the binary answer.
Computer nerd alert. Nerd alert.
Indeed.
Yeah. And,
Indeed.
so what got me thinking about this, why I wanted to share it is I've got a group of friends. We've known each other for a long time, and we're in this kind of trying to have an accountability group. Like we're on a group. And one of the guys, he said, I want to start creating a newsletter. And the first 3 weeks, it was great. It was a really good newsletter. And that was about 6 weeks ago. And he hasn't done it. And we've asked, hey, when's the next one coming out? What can we do to help you? And the truth is, we're busy. And now it's just behind the ball a little bit. And I asked him, I was like, hey, can I share the 2 things that I've done that actually help me create the content that I wouldn't otherwise? And so this concept, I was like, you know what, this would be a good example because really the realtor waiting list program is actually built on these 2 things. Like we know how important video, especially vendors and realtors are getting out of the business. There's so many orphans out there that we can reach multiple people and build relationships with them through video. Like we know how important video is, but it's still not easy to do. And built on one, it gives you, the lender, a reason to show up. But even more than that, like you are the gift, where the smart realtors are to show up and do this with you. And the fact that we lay out from A to Z exactly how to do it, it's really the best gift that you could possibly have going into the new year, to have a system where, hey, my people see me every day and they hear from me on what's happening in the market. And it's just amazing. You've been doing this for a while now. What are the benefits that you've gotten from this relationship, this boom roasted?
Yeah, so it's all the same things that you're talking about. It's making sure that the content happens. And more than that, there was I forget the full story. This is something that I'm sure that you've heard about too, but there was a study done or an experiment ran in like a classroom. I forget the full setup of this, but essentially 2 groups of students were given alternative instructions in order to test what the results would be. It was a pottery class. And in the pottery class, one of the groups was said, all I want you to do is to just create as many pieces of pottery as possible, right? I want you to focus exclusively on quantity. I want you to, you are going to be judged based on the amount that you produce, right? Regardless of what the quality looks like. And then the other group was told, I want you to focus on quality. I want you to focus on doing it right, on doing it perfect, and you will be judged at the end based on your quality, right? And what they figured out is that the group that was told to focus on quantity also ended up producing the better quality. That by the end of that time frame, their pieces of pottery were actually better than the ones who were trying to focus on quality itself. And that lesson holds true for me in this kind of thing, where if we want to get better at creating content, if we want to get better at doing this meaningfully and having it be impactful and having it be good, I know that we just need to put in the work, right? Like we just need to do it. We need to do it where it's on repeat and we're putting in the reps to actually, try and master this process. And I know a lot of people don't create content because they're worried that it's not going to be good. Right? Like they create content. They're like, nobody wants to listen to this. Nobody wants to hear this. I don't know what to say that's interesting or useful. And part of what I love about this, about like forcing functions and doing it this way, is I already know that the way that you get good is just by doing it. And so you have to have something that forces you past that voice in your head that's like, this isn't good. This isn't going to be good. And one of the quickest ways past that is by focusing on just having a conversation with another person. And so luckily for me, I don't tend to struggle as much with the like that voice in my head saying, oh, like it's got to be better in order for people to like it. For me, it's a little bit different, where it's a little bit more of a, can't help my, like you and I have a similar personality on this. I can't help myself but search it different more and refine it further. Like that's part of my personality. But I do know that I want to improve the quality, and I know the way that I improve the quality is by getting more reps in, by doing it more often. And having this process has been really helpful for, maybe it doesn't always show up in the actual content yet, but like our process for how we're creating content, coming up with ideas, the ways that we think through that, the way that we structure stuff, like all of that, it's getting better every time as we've been doing this for weeks now, months actually. I believe, I forget when we actually started. That's a testament to this, is that we've been doing it for long enough. It doesn't feel like we've been doing it for super long, but we have. And so
we actually started in July.
Easy to,
so we're almost in November now.
Really?
We started in I know we were doing at least in July, because that's when I went to Florida and we arranged it.
Yeah. So there you go. So it's, and that time has flown by because it's not something that I have to think about each week. It's something I know it's going to happen. I know we're going to show up. I know we're going to do it. And so we just keep putting the work in. And our content, our show will slowly get better over time. The way that we can curate our content toward our audiences gets better over time. All of that, it just gets better. And it makes sure that you're doing the things that are necessary. You need to be able to show up for your audience. You need to be able to show up so that they're aware of you, so that they know how you can make a difference in their life, in their business, in the transaction that they need to do, right? No matter who you're reaching, right? If they aren't aware of you, then you don't get the end results of them wanting to hire you. And so this is one of the best ways to do that leverage. But it can be hard to build the habit to actually make it happen. And taking the step of recording the content with somebody else is one of the easiest ways to just make sure that's consistent. At least it's been the easiest for me. That's been one of the most surefire ways to have me create at a higher rate than anything else.
Yeah. And I was thinking one of the things is I've hired people before to meet with me and just record these. And it was helpful. But in a lot of ways, it was almost like hiring an assassin. Like it was technical, wham, bam, we knocked it out. And I was relying on them to evolve, and I fit myself into their pattern. And that's they got paid to do. What I've loved about, we really are co-creating. We're creating something unique. Like this isn't just easily duplicatable. Like my unique experience, people get used to seeing both of us, and they may not always, but when they do, they enjoy it. And so they're full about together creating something brand new and letting it evolve versus just following someone else's template. And I just think that's really powerful to be able to, like, you're not an assassin. You're not just like a hired hand. Like we're developing something new together, which kind of has its own evolution.
Right. There's definitely places for Where the hired hands, where that makes sense is when you've got something that you've got dialed and you just want it implemented. But like most of us aren't operating on that. Most of us are still figuring out what is the unique way that works well for me. What's the unique way that that I flow to create content. And this sort of structure where we both have an incentive to do this. We both have an incentive built in to keep doing this for our own selfish reasons, but also for the unselfish reasons as well. Right? They come together. That makes it so that we're able to be more adaptable. We're able to figure it out. Like we're able to give it a little bit more time sometimes. Right? Where it isn't just like you don't show up and I'm not like pissed off if we don't have a topic ready or whatnot. It's like we figure it out. Like
Right.
we both want this to work. So there's a good way. And similarly, if I've got something that I'm like kicking around but don't have fleshed out, like you help me think through it. Like we're able to work in it together. So yeah, and that doesn't happen as often when it's just like you hire somebody, you show up and you run their process, right? That's they're designed for scale rather than designed for kind of that figuring it out creative process. Yeah, there's a lot of power in doing it this way for sure.
Yeah. And some of the benefits for me and the lenders that I work with that are doing this, like we just talked about it, but developing a relationship, like we've known each other now really, and it's been since 2020, which is crazy. Think about knowing each other. And it's one of those things whenever we talk, a lot of times like we're like, all right, I really got to go now. We really enjoy talking. I know a lot out of like our conversations, and you do too.
Yeah, me too.
And so one of the cool things is like, not only are we building something awesome together, but like it's truly, this is a like conversation and we talk ahead of time. And most of the time we don't talk when it's over because we've used up all the time with it. And one of the cool things with the lenders that are working with realtors is you've got that, like you've got a reason to get together, because otherwise we'd go 4, 5, 6 months without talking sometimes just because life is busy, right? And,
yeah, shoot, we went through some periods like that, and like part of it my life got really busy when
you had to go have twins.
Yeah,
yeah, selfie eye.
There was legitimately like easily a year-long time where we had been talking a lot, and then I was just like, yeah, I'm kind of disappeared for a while. I don't have the space or mental capacity to even think about taking time to do something. But now that like it's still chaotic and life is still hard at this stage, but like I've got carved time to be able to talk and whatnot. But anyway, the other thing is that without something like that, without that specific time to meet together, it just does it like it. You talk less often with people that you aren't planning to talk with consistently. And so, yeah. One of the concepts that I actually really like about this is, honestly, in my life, we were talking about this earlier on the episode that we recorded together. It may not have actually been in the episode itself, but like for the most part, I have the relationships in my life that I want to have, right? Like I've got my family, and I already don't have enough time to do all the things that I want to do with them. Right. And so pretty much every other relationship that I keep in my life is kind of this blend of a friend that is also beneficial in business as well. Right. Like I have lots of colleagues that I am also friends with. And that's part of what makes things work for me is I don't surround myself with people that I don't want to spend my time with because my time is already precious. I do have work to get done. So outside of my family relationships, it's like the other people that are in my life are people that I enjoy being around, but we also accomplish crap together. And typically we achieve both. So it's like this really cool benefit of finding those people that you just enjoy hanging out with and being around, but you get to leverage that enjoyable friendship to accomplish things together as well. So I'm always looking for those kinds of relationships, to people that it makes sense to double down on the friendship. And I would, regardless, I just don't have a lot of time. Like people, I'm a big fan of connecting with people, but I don't have a ton of time to have a bunch of friendships. Often in life, my friendships have to do double duty.
Right.
and it's good to be able to accomplish business and make friends along the way.
And I think that's one of the reasons that we're in the business we're in. We like people. And that's the lenders that love the realtors they're working with. Like they want to talk more. A lot of times they're similar, like we're on the road dealing with inspections and appraisals, and it's not that I want to have coffee, but Like we just really, we want to grow our business and do other things. And is now as a realtor, like there's a reason that like you're being very helpful, letting them create this content, co-creating it with them. You deepen the relationship, and with people getting out of the business, the new year coming, like of course it's going to grow your business. And right. The last thing, I was talking to a friend today about the grocery store principle. If I saw you in the grocery store and you saw me, which we talk all the time now, but I've got clients that, right. If I saw them, we would talk for 10, 15 minutes and be like, hey, I've got to leave. I've got something to go. I wish we talked more. And what's really cool is because this person was a lender and she used to run advertisements to everyone in her city. And of course, she was spending a lot of money, and she got one person to show up to a home buyer seminar, and that person was already under contract.
No.
And the people in her sphere said none of them actually saw her ads. And so cool is all these ads actually run to the people that pass the grocery store test. So it's not even that you're creating the content, but the right people are seeing it, and the people that right. they literally want to talk to you. And right. So that, that's part of the force function and the co-creation of realtor waiting lists. So what some of the lenders say is just really valuable.
Yeah, and it is. It's powerful. It's a perfect part of the overall stack of what you're helping people to do, for sure. So yeah, definitely realtor waiting list. Check it out. I know, Charlie, you tend to not be able to just take on an unlimited number of people, right? Like your systems are set up in a way you've got a limited staff, you've got a limited capacity for how many people you can onboard at any given point. So definitely people should check out what you're up to at realtorwaitinglist.com, correct?
Realtorwaitinglist.com.
But do note you might have to fill out a form and get on the waiting list as Charlie is able to bring on more availability, more capacity, as more people get onboarded. So if it's something that sounds interesting to you, you want to get started, learn how to do this, learn how to get a waiting list of realtors who are excited to work with you, that you love working with as well. If you want to learn that process, I highly recommend you go there, you start that as quickly as possible, because if there isn't capacity right now, you might have to wait a bit until he has capacity available. And this is definitely the kind of thing that you want to start as soon as possible. So if it sounds interesting and you don't want to have to wait, I recommend going now and getting yourself into that list as soon as possible. And what happens next after that? Typically, you hop on the phone and see
so
if
once
it's a mutual good fit.
Yeah, once they fill that form out, I'll if we've got an opening, either way, I'll reach out to them, let them know. And if we've got an opening right now, which we are filling up for the end of the year, hop on the phone. And the first part, it's really all about them. Let's find out what your business is and see if we're a good fit. And then invite you into the program. We've got a few. We do it all at once. That way we've got the mastermind. We bring co-creation into everything. And then we build your waiting list over a few weeks and go from there. Grow your business, grow their business.
Perfect. So yeah, definitely check it out. Worth it. It's as a strategy, as a concept, it's one of the best ways that I've seen to systematically and consistently attract the perfect people to work with, who you enjoy working with, to know that you can find the perfect realtors whenever you need to, as many, as often as you need to. There isn't another system that kind of puts that control back into you, back into your lap as the lender. I know the dynamic is normally that lenders are chasing down business. I think it's a nice thing that you're offering, to be able to give people more control back over their time and life, to really be able to decide who you want to work with and find those perfect people and have the confidence to do. That's the thing that's often missing. But yeah, definitely check it out. realtorwaitinglist.com.
Yeah, maybe our new slogan is "The hunter has become the hunted."
That's right.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. This was Zach Hammer, Charlie Madison. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.